Hey there, and welcome back to Mama Drama and Trauma. I'm your host, Jenny Kimmel. Before I dive into today's episode, I want to share something about me. I am a private person. I don't put my business out there. I've always kept things close to my heart. For weeks, over a month really, I didn't tell anyone outside of my family what was happening. I just carried it. And even now, there are people in my life who are only hearing the truth for the first time because I'm saying it here. That feels terrifying. It feels unnatural. It feels vulnerable in a way I never thought I'd allow. This isn't something I ever imagined myself doing, sharing my story, exposing my darkest and most painful moments. But in my darkest hour, I thought no one could possibly understand. And I don't want anyone else to feel that way. So if you're listening right now and you're in that place, I need you to hear me. You are not alone. I've been there, and you can make it to the other side. The breaking point. By the second half of September, something inside me snapped. I couldn't keep living in this back and forth limbo, clinging to hope one moment, drowning in despair the next. One night, I was lying awake, in bed, staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. My chest felt heavy, my heart pounding. I grabbed my phone and started typing. I wrote to him, "As you have said, you've taken things too far with her, and she seems to have some kind of grip on you. You say you're only talking to her now, but feelings still grow when you're just talking and having intimate conversations. And that seems to be what you want." I told him, "You made your choice. You chose her. Calling her every time we get off the phone makes me sick to my stomach." And then the part that gutted me most, finding out he was introducing her as his girlfriend. That single word erased me. It erased 22 years of marriage. It erased the life we had built. It erased the mother of his children. That night, I drew a line. You're free from me. Don't call or come in the house anymore. You made your choice, and it's clear. I will be filing for divorce, and I don't want to see or talk to you anymore. Please don't reach out unless it's about the business or the kids. There is nothing left between us. It's over. Even birthdays, I set boundaries. We are not going to celebrate as a family because we are not one. Our kids need to come to grips with the new normal, and so do I. When I hit send, my hands were shaking. My stomach was in knots. But for the first time, I felt a flicker of strength. Because I had said it out loud, we are not a family anymore. The shower rage. And then came that Sunday. The boys and I were outside mowing the grass, working hard in the yard, sweat dripping, sun beating down, the hum of the mower filling the air. We were hot, exhausted, just doing what needed to be done. Meanwhile, where was he? Not here, not helping his sons push that mower, not helping me carry the weight of a home and 3 kids. He was with her, out having fun, living his new life, acting like no one else existed. That contrast cut so deep, me and the boys sweating in the yard, doing the work, while he was off parading around with her, carefree, laughing like he hadn't just blown up his family. By the time I came inside, I was boiling. I stepped into the shower, hoping the hot water would cool me down. But instead, the anger grew hotter. I thought of everything, the lies, the disrespect, the fact that he could so easily replace me. And I snapped. I grabbed my phone with wet hands and I started typing. I sent one message and then another and then another. Every time I thought of something else, I sent it. I told him I hoped she realized what she had done to hurt so many people. I told him I hoped they both got what they deserved for destroying lives without a second thought. I told him how disgusting it was to introduce her as his girlfriend while his wife and kids were left behind. Text after text after text, I poured it all out in that shower. And when I finally stopped, I stood there in the steam, trembling, not from the fear of his response, not from the weight of his words, but from the release of finally saying everything I had been holding inside. That shower rage became another breaking point, because once those words were out, there was no shoving them back inside. Reflection on betrayal. Around this time, I wrote in my journal, I didn't think he would ever betray me. Our lives appeared so perfect together. I was his everything, and he was mine. But I guess people change, and not always for the better. I trusted him with my heart and soul, and he trampled them both. I never saw it coming, but maybe deep down I did. The signs were there. I just chose to ignore them. Now I'm left picking up the pieces of my broken heart, wondering how I ever let myself fall so hard for someone who turned out to be a liar and a cheat. If only I had listened to my head instead of my heart, maybe none of this would have happened. But love makes us do crazy things. And sometimes those crazy things lead to a world of hurt. I thought we were happy. Yes, I wasn't always happy with myself, but I thought we were okay. So to find out he was telling people we hadn't been happy in years, it felt like betrayal on top of betrayal. It was like he was rewriting history, erasing our story. The affair was one kind of betrayal, but this was another. Realizing the man I trusted most could look back at 2 decades together and act like it had never mattered. Journal entry, September 26th. On September 26th, I sat down and poured my heart out in my journal again. And what I wrote that day captured exactly how broken I was feeling. I'm so heartbroken. I wish this wasn't my life. I wish you wouldn't have done this to us. It's clear where I stand, and it's way behind her. She comes first in your life now, and it crushes my heart into 1,000 pieces. I wish you wanted me as much as you want her. I truly thought you loved me, that you would always be by my side, that you wouldn't leave when things got tough. Clearly, I was mistaken. You left and broke apart our family without even trying to put it back together. You just gave up on us. And you left the boys and me to deal with all this devastation and pain while you're out living your best life. I really thought we were better than this. I thought we could make it through anything. Sadly, I was wrong. I just hope she's worth all the hurt and misery you've caused me and the boys, because it's going to take us a long time to heal. I'm not sure I'll ever get over you. I gave you my whole heart and you stomped on it. You broke it into 1,000,000 pieces and left me here to figure out how to put it back together. I'm not sure I'll ever figure that out. The pain hasn't gotten any easier since day one. I just want it to go away, but it doesn't. Every night, I miss you by my side. I miss your arms around me. I can't believe I still have tears left to cry. I'm so emotionally drained, just trying to get by day after day. I even wrote about the little things, the silly, simple things I missed, like him eating crackers in bed, crumbs everywhere. Because as much as those things used to drive me crazy, they were part of us. And suddenly, even the crumbs became something I would have given anything to have back. I wrote, I wish you would have seen the greatness in me instead of hating me for my weaknesses. Even though I've said terrible things to you in anger, I really do want what's best for you. I'm grateful for our kids and the time we had together, even if you were unhappy, because I do still love you and probably always will. That entry was written through tears. Every word came out of the deepest part of me. Broken, devastated, longing, but still loving. And that's what hurt the most. That I still loved him. That even after everything he had done, I couldn't just shut it off. The empty bed. On September 27th, I sent him a message that poured straight out of my heartbreak. I wrote, I pray to God that every night you lay down to sleep next to her in our camper, you think of me and what pain and misery you've caused. I hope I cross your mind while you enjoy a nice, warm body next to you. And you remember all I have next to me is a very cold bed where you used to lay. That text was written out of devastation. I couldn't understand how the person I had lived with for more than 20 years, the father of my children, the one who knew me better than anyone, could do this to me, to our sons, to our families. I couldn't wrap my mind around how easily I had been replaced by someone he barely knew, without him even thinking twice about it. And that's exactly what it felt like every night. It was heartbreaking climbing into bed. I would try to distract myself, journaling before bed, lighting candles, anything to keep my mind from going to that place. But no matter what I did, the silence and the emptiness hit me the second I laid down. I remember reaching over to his side of the bed, my hand brushing over his pillow, the place where he used to lay. Sometimes I would place my hand where his chest would have been, just wishing for him to be there, to wrap his arms around me, to hold me. Because I loved his hugs. He gave the best hugs, the kind of hugs where he just held you tight like nothing could touch you. I remember the night before my dad passed away, he had flown home from working out of town. That night, as we lay in bed, I told him I needed this hug from you. He held me, knowing the inevitable was coming, knowing my dad probably wouldn't be with us much longer. And in that moment, I felt safe in his arms, comforted in my grief. That's what I longed for in September. One of those hugs, one of his hugs. And it's heartbreaking to think that the one thing I needed most in that season, comfort, safety, arms around me, could only come from the same person who had broken my heart. There were even moments during those garage talks when he'd open his arms and say, "Come give me a hug." And God, I wanted to. I wanted it so badly, but I didn't, because I knew if I did, I would just melt into him. I would lose all the strength I was trying to hold on to. But the truth is, I still wanted those hugs. Desperately. Every night, lying in that cold bed, I would think to myself, I could really use one of his hugs right now. The emptiness wasn't just in the bed, it filled the whole room, the whole house, my whole heart. Just a month or two before, he had been right there beside me, loving me, holding me, hugging me, and now that was gone. Forever. It felt like a void inside me that would never be filled again. And to know that someone else was now getting those hugs, the hugs that had once been mine, the hugs I needed more than ever, it shattered me. Lying in that empty bed, missing the person who had laid next to me for 24 years, missing the safety of his arms, missing the love I thought we shared. It was devastating. It was more than loneliness. It was grief. It was heartbreak in its rawest form. Reclaiming my room. So once all of his things were packed up and cleared out of the room, I decided, with the advice of a couple of people close to me, to revamp my room. I needed it to stop feeling like our room. I needed it to start feeling like my room. So I went out and bought new bedding, new sheets that I picked out, that I liked, that I wanted. I hung up new curtains. I started making little changes that made the space feel like mine again. I also began taking things down from the walls. There was a saying that had hung above our bed that read, "And so together they built a life they loved." I couldn't look at it anymore. Not when together had been ripped away. Not when the life I thought we built was shattered. On another wall, I had a piece that said, "I love being yours." That one came down too. There were photos as well, reminders of us. A couple of our wedding pictures sat on the dresser. Those went into a box. And then there was the big one. Just a month before everything came crashing down, I had printed out a large photo of the two of us from a family photo shoot. A 12 by 18, framed it and hung it on the wall. I remember him questioning me about it at the time. "When did you get that? Why'd you do that?" he asked. Looking back now, maybe that should have been a red flag, but I didn't think anything of it then. I see it differently now. How blind I was. How much I wanted to believe we were still solid, even as the cracks were forming right under my feet. That photo came down too. After that, I bought a couple of new decor items. Little things to fill the empty spaces. I brought in candles I could light when I journaled. Small things that gave me a sense of peace, even in a room heavy with memories. I couldn't erase the years of what we shared in that room, but I could start to shift the energy. I could start to replace the reminders of us with reminders of me. It was bittersweet. Sad to think of how much I had once believed in all those words. All of me loves all of you, a life we loved, only to realize none of it was true. But it was also the beginning of something else, a quiet claiming of my space, a fresh start in the one place that still had to feel like home. The anniversary weekend. And then came September 22nd, our 22nd wedding anniversary. I had dreaded that day from the very start of September. I didn't try to ignore it. I wanted to face it head on, but I knew it was going to hurt. I even talked to Dr. Denise about it. She told me, "You need to go out. Surround yourself with people, do fun things, don't sit at home dwelling on him or on what that day was supposed to be." She encouraged me to let the kids stay with him that weekend so I could take care of myself. So I told him I needed him to keep the kids. He agreed, and honestly, I don't even know if he realized what that weekend was. If he did, he never said a word. That Friday night, my sister-in-laws, his brother's wives, stepped in. They had been amazing through this whole ordeal. Even though technically they were his family, they never dropped me. They loved me for more than 20 years, and they kept loving me through this. They checked in. They cared. They wanted to make sure I was okay. And that night, they made sure I wasn't alone. They took me to Cooper's Hawk, a nice restaurant, the kind of place he and I might have gone for an anniversary dinner. I remember sitting there, ordering food, probably something like the pretzel-encrusted pork chop I used to love. But even as I ate, it didn't feel the same. This wasn't a celebration of us anymore. It was just dinner. Dinner to keep me from sitting at home, staring at the wall, drowning in grief. They did their best to make me feel loved. They listened when I needed to talk about him. They laughed with me. They shared stories about our kids and theirs. They reminded me I still had family, and I did laugh. I did smile, but I also know there were tears at that table too. That was my life then. Laughter mixed with sadness, joy, and grief tangled up together. And underneath it all, I couldn't stop thinking about the vows we had made 22 years earlier. The promises to stay through thick and thin, promises that were broken. That night should have been a celebration of love. Instead, it was a reminder that the love I believed in was gone. The next night, Saturday the 23rd, my friends Michelle and Darren carried me through. They took me to a little place called Triple Lakes, a casual bar out in the middle of nowhere. Across the street, nothing but cornfields. Behind the bar, 3 lakes stretched out, glowing in the sunset. The patio had lights strung across it, the kind of lights that made the evening feel soft, even as the music was loud. The band that night was fun, playing 80s and 90s songs, the kind you can't help but sing along to. Everyone around us seemed to be a couple, and for the first time in 22 years, I wasn't. That felt awkward, uncomfortable. I was the odd one out, the single person among pairs. But Michelle made sure I wasn't left sitting there alone in that discomfort. She ordered rounds of shots. We laughed, we drank, we sang along with the music. We made it fun. And then something happened I'll never forget. After a few drinks, I opened up to people I didn't even know. Michelle's friends, strangers to me, heard my story for the very first time. Not through whispers or rumors, not from anyone else's mouth, but from me. It was easier somehow to tell strangers than it was to tell people close to me. Their shock was real. Their pity stung, but it was also the first time the words were truly mine. The first time I said out loud what had happened. When I came home those nights, though, the sadness always returned. I cried myself to sleep both nights. I missed him terribly. I wanted his arms around me. It wasn't how I ever imagined celebrating 22 years of marriage. But I survived it. And maybe, just maybe, that weekend was also the first time I started to remember who I was. I didn't feel guilty for going out. In fact, it felt like survival. It was my first step toward reclaiming me. I remembered that I actually enjoy people, that I enjoy going out, laughing, being social. I had lost that part of myself in the years before, and that weekend reminded me she's still in there. Still, I reflected. I thought about past anniversaries, how we always celebrated by going out to dinner, how I always believed we'd be together forever. I thought back to the day we got married and the love we really did share once upon a time. I thought about the struggles in those first couple years of marriage, the long hours he worked, the lonely nights I spent at home, the challenges we pushed through. Back then, I thought making it through those early struggles meant we were solid, that after surviving the hard beginnings, we'd built something unshakable. But here I was, 22 years later, alone at a bar, alone at a dinner table, mourning the loss of something I thought would last forever. That weekend was supposed to be a celebration of love. Instead, it became a reminder of everything I had lost. It was hard. It was heartbreaking, but it was also one of those weekends where I proved to myself I can get through this. The boys. Through it all, the boys kept trying to go with the flow. He'd pick them up for dinner once or twice during the week. On Saturdays, they'd spend the day with him, stay the night at the camper, and come home Sunday. This is around the time we started a schedule of every other weekend. I'm pretty sure it was after our anniversary weekend, but the camper was 45 minutes away. So school nights, that was never an option to stay overnight. I think they were still in shock, still hoping it wasn't permanent, still clinging to the idea that life might go back to normal. And honestly, I had that hope too. My gut told me the truth, but my heart didn't want to believe it. My heart wanted to believe this wasn't going to be permanent. He also came to football games during this time, and that was hard. It was hard sitting in the bleachers, watching the game, but also watching him. Because gosh, I missed him. I missed sitting next to him, cheering our kids on together. That was supposed to be us forever. I thought we'd be side by side for the rest of our lives, cheering for our kids. And to have that taken away, it was sad, crushing. The weight of it sat heavy on me every single time. I couldn't stop asking myself the why questions. Why is this happening? Why us? How did we get here? How did I not see this coming? The whys and the hows and the what ifs, those are the things that kill you, the things you can't answer. It was awkward too, because every once in a while I would catch him looking at me and I'd look away quickly, almost like we were strangers, as if we hadn't been married for 22 years. I didn't want him to see me looking at him like he was someone I didn't even know. I wanted him there for the kids, and I knew it made them happy when he was there. But it was so hard for me. I couldn't sit next to him, not because I didn't want to, but because it felt fake. If I sat next to him, it was like pretending we were still one, still together, and we weren't. So I chose not to sit with him, even though every part of me ached to be next to him again. There were times I'd get back in my car after a game and just want to break down and cry because I was going home alone and he was going back to the camper. Another layer of awkwardness came from his mom. She wanted to support us both, and she knew I was hurting. At one point, she said she would take turns sitting with us. One game with me, one game with him. I told her, no, he's your son. You go sit by him, but she could see how much I was hurting, and she didn't want me to feel any more pain than I already was, so she really did take turns. And that meant so much to me. His family was nothing but compassionate and loving during that time. They never turned on me. They never rejected me. They validated my feelings and stood by me even when the situation was so messy. I will always be grateful for that, but the truth is, some of those relationships have never been the same. Some of them faded, some of them disappeared completely, and that still hurts because I loved them like they were my family. They were my family for over 20 years. And this is what I mean when I say people who have affairs have no idea how deep the wounds cut. It's not just the betrayal of a spouse, it's the breaking of bonds, the shattering of relationships, the ripple effect that damages so many corners of your life. They'll never realize how deep those cuts go. I know I talked about Ryan and Derek's 16th birthday in episode 5, but I want to expand a little bit on how that birthday ended up being the very first holiday or celebration we weren't together for as a family. One of the hardest texts I sent him during this time was telling him we wouldn't celebrate the boys' birthdays together anymore. I wrote, as far as the kids' birthday, I will have them on their birthday, and you can have them the day before or the day after. We are not going to celebrate as a family because we are not one. Typing those words nearly broke me. It was such a hard decision. The truth is, I was doing a lot of these things back then to try to make him realize what he was missing out on. I thought maybe if he saw everything he was losing, he'd wake up. My intentions weren't always in the right place, but looking back now, I can see that choice saved me, and it saved the kids from even more heartbreak, because the reality is it wasn't our loss. It was his. He's the one who doesn't get to celebrate as a family anymore. He made that choice, and while it was so hard to hit send on that message, I know now it was what was best for the kids and for me. Birthdays had always been such a big deal in our family. From the very beginning, we celebrated them big. I still remember Ryan and Derek's very first birthday. How joyous it was. We finally had them, our boys. Their first birthday celebration was pure joy because we were just so grateful. By their second birthday, we were already a family of 5, and we celebrated together, believing that's how it would always be. Every birthday, every milestone together. There were years he was working out of town and couldn't be home on their actual birthdays, but he always came home a weekend before or after to celebrate. We always made it work. Because birthdays were important to us, they were important to me, I always decorated for the boys every single year because I wanted them to feel loved and celebrated. I always believed that everyone deserves to be celebrated at least once a year. As they got older, the parties got smaller, but we always marked the day with family, grandparents, aunts and uncles, cousins, whoever could come. We always made sure the kids knew they were celebrated, and now everything was different. That first birthday season, without us being a family of 5, broke something in me. For the first time in 22 plus years, I signed a card, my kid's birthday card. Love you, Mom. Not Mom and Dad. The name I had signed Mom and Dad all those years was no more. It was simply, Love you, Mom. That tiny line at the bottom of a card said everything. We weren't us anymore. It's little things like that you don't think about. But when they're happening, it hits hard. I didn't want to give the kids false hope by pretending we were still together, still whole when we weren't. That would have been unfair to them. So I made the decision, no more pretending, but gosh, it was hard. Typing the words, "We are not one anymore," cut deep. Because I knew it was true. I had already taken down the Party of 5 sign in our house, and that had felt like a stab to the heart. Now birthdays, the most joyful days of the year, would never be the same. I look back on old birthday photos sometimes and see us all smiling together. And I think about how much I loved those moments, how much the kids loved them. And now that was gone. We were a family of 4, and no matter what, it would never be the same again. I still keep some of those family pictures up around the house. I didn't take them down right away. I left them up for the boys because they deserve to see where they came from, that they were conceived in love, that their dad and I did love each other and them. I didn't want them to think otherwise, but deep down, it was devastating to realize those pictures were now just memories of something that would never be again. And through all of this, I was still trying to parent, still trying to be strong for my boys. But I wasn't the mom I once was. I was an emotional wreck. I was trying to find my way through the heartbreak, and I know it took a toll on them. My husband was checked out at that point, so I carried the weight. And in some ways, I think the boys carried it too. They were stronger than they should have had to be. And I hate that. I think in those first months, they were strong because I couldn't be. They had no choice but to hold it together while I fell apart. And later down the road, I would see them break too. I would see them hurt. But in those early months, they held it all in. And that's something no child should ever have to do. And as a mom, knowing I put them in this position is a guilt I don't know will ever leave me. Turning inward. Around this same time, I took one of the hardest but most important steps so far. I went to see an attorney. I still remember driving there, my sunroof open, windows down, blasting inspirational music about strong women, songs to try to put me in the right headspace. Inside, I was breaking, but I was trying to convince myself to be strong, to walk into that office and face the reality of what I was about to do. It was the first time I had ever said the word divorce in a professional setting. The first time I admitted out loud that I might need to end my marriage. Just walking into that office felt surreal. My hands were shaking. My stomach was in knots. Part of me still believed, or maybe hoped, that this would all work itself out, that he would come back, that we would fix things. But the other part of me knew I had to protect myself. I had to learn what the process looked like. I couldn't stay frozen in limbo forever. So I sat there across from the attorney and we talked through it all. The kids, the house, the business, the finances, custody, division, what life would look like if I filed. It was overwhelming. It was terrifying. But it was the first time I started to see a roadmap, a way forward, even if it wasn't the one I wanted. I didn't end up going with that first attorney. Something in me felt like I needed to keep looking. So I kept searching, and eventually I met with another attorney. In that second office, I felt a little steadier, a little more prepared. I asked better questions. I started to picture what it would look like to actually file. And that began the long process of writing down every bit of what we had built during our 22 years together. And that's when I started filling out the paperwork. The paperwork felt endless, listing assets, filling out forms, writing down every account, every property, every shared investment, and responsibility. It was overwhelming to see in black and white just how much of our lives were tied together. So much we owned together. So many things that weren't just his or mine, but ours. Every line I filled out wasn't just legal information. It was the dismantling of a life we had built over 2 decades. Every detail, every form, every memory. The process itself felt like grief. Slow, exhausting, relentless. And at the same time, I was still texting him, still sending words like, I will be filing for divorce. When I pressed send on those words, part of me was hoping for a miracle, hoping he would reply, no, don't do that. We can work this out. Please stop. I wanted him to stop me, to realize how big of a mistake he was making. But those words never came. Not once did he tell me not to file. So instead of relief, all I felt was sadness, heartbreak, the painful truth that maybe this is what he wanted all along. And that thought was terrifying. There were still so many garage talks during this time. Nights standing in the garage, me asking the same questions over and over, hoping for a different answer, a different outcome. I just wanted him to tell me I was enough, that I was worth staying for, that I was worth fighting for. But that's not what he said. And the more I asked, the more tired he became of my questions. Tired of explaining himself, tired of repeating the same words. And I hate admitting this, but here's the truth. I was almost begging him to love me, to stay with me. That's where I was, broken, vulnerable, almost without respect for myself. And it's heartbreaking to say that out loud, to admit that I was in a place where I felt like I had to convince someone to love me. But I'm here to be vulnerable. And that's the truth. That's where I was in my life. And I never want to be her again. But as overwhelming as it was also proof that I was moving forward, that I was taking steps, even if they were messy and painful, toward something new. Looking back and reaching forward. Looking back now, if I could go back and talk to myself in that second month, I'd tell her this. You're going to be okay. You're going to make it through this. And you're going to come out stronger. I'd tell her to believe in herself, to believe that she's doing everything she can for her kids and that they are going to be just fine because of her. That even though it doesn't feel like it now, they'll still be a family, a strong one, just the four of them. I'd remind her they need you right now. Even if you feel like you're barely hanging on, they need your strength, your steadiness, your presence. And most of all, I'd say this pain will not last forever. You are worth more than this pain. This wasn't about you. This was about him. You're doing a great job. Minute by minute, you're surviving, and that's enough. And to anyone listening right now who is in that second month, this is for you. You are going to be okay. I promise you that. You may feel like you're dying inside, like you can't breathe without him, like nothing will ever feel normal again. But those are feelings. They are not your future. You are not defined by this. You are not broken. You are not alone. Reclaim yourself. Start today. Your worth is not tied to a man or a relationship or a marriage. Your worth is in who you are when no one is watching and who you are becoming now that the light is starting to shine through the cracks. Lean on others. Share your stories. Speak your truth. Because you deserve more and you will get there. And if all you can do today is breathe and take one slow step forward, trust me, that counts. As always, you are strong, you are worthy, and your story matters. Until next time, take care of you.